We all have this Hollywood idea of how danger is supposed to show up. We expect loud alarms, shattering glass, maybe some dramatic music playing in the background. We think the threats in our lives are going to be completely obvious. But that is a fatal miscalculation. The truth? The most destructive forces in your life almost never start with a bang. They start with small, quiet mismatches. You'll notice a tiny inconsistency in how someone acts. You'll feel a slight, weird shift in the room's energy. But what do we usually do? We brush it off. We explain it away almost instantly. We do this because the violation simply isn't loud enough to force us into action. You probably think you're just being patient. You tell yourself, hey, a strong, grounded guy doesn't sweat the small stuff, right? But let's be brutally honest here. You aren't projecting strength. What you're actually doing is slowly normalizing your own disrespect. You are rolling out the red carpet for slow, creeping danger to settle comfortably right into your daily reality. Men miss these critical warning signs all the time. And it's not because we're blind, and it's definitely not because you're inherently weak or broken. It's simply because these red flags arrive wearing slippers, not combat boots. We've been programmed by a distorted set of social rules to wait for some massive, explosive betrayal to justify packing our bags. We wait for the undeniable, catastrophic failure. But while you're sitting around waiting for that explosion, your actual value is quietly bleeding out on the floor. Your boundaries are being dismantled, literally 1 millimeter at a time. You get trapped in this endless loop of subtle compromises, constantly adjusting your standards downward just to keep the peace. Welcome to the quietest, deadliest trap in modern relationships. To really grasp why we tolerate this, we have to look under the hood at your internal mechanics. Think of it as the model map of normalization and gradual boundary erosion. Your brain is an incredibly efficient biological machine, and its main job is to conserve energy. If a threat is sudden and massive, like a tiger jumping out of the bushes, your nervous system lights up instantly. You fight or you run. Boom. But if the threat is just a slow, gradual drop in temperature, your body just adapts. You put up with it. And eventually, you freeze to death without ever really noticing how cold it got. This is exactly how a man's internal frame collapses in a relationship. Someone tests your boundaries with a tiny, almost invisible violation. It seems way too petty to start a whole argument over, right? So, you bite your tongue. You stay completely silent and give them the benefit of the doubt. But here is the kicker. That silence is a massive behavioral leak. By ignoring that tiny violation, you're triggering something called intermittent reinforcement. You are actively training this person to disrespect you. You're showing them, in real time, that your so-called boundaries are actually just polite suggestions. Instantly, your perceived social value takes a hit. But why do we stay invested? It's that deep, nagging validation addiction. We crave approval. We desperately hope things will magically snap back to how they were in the beginning. Spoiler alert, they won't. Once your frame is compromised, the respect checks out. Your mind simply adapts to the new, lower standard instead of calling out the disrespect. Let's drag this out of theory and see how this fatal inconsistency plays out in the real world. I'll give you 3 practical insights. The first one, chronic lateness and timeline manipulation. Time is literally the only truly scarce resource you possess. Imagine you arrange to meet someone. They show up 20 minutes late and hit you with some completely vague, softly worded excuse. What do? You smile, wave it off and say, "No worries, it's absolutely fine." You think you're looking like the chill, unbothered guy, but in reality, You just signaled extreme overavailability. You broadcasted to the world that your time has zero inherent value. A man with a truly cold, rational frame protects his time like a vault. He understands that smiling through chronic lateness is silently accepting a deeply low-value position in that dynamic. Insight number 2. Vague accountability and the absolute illusion of the modern apology. This one is everywhere. Someone acts poorly, creates unnecessary chaos in your life, and instead of taking ownership, they pull out the classic mirror response. I'm sorry you feel upset. Let's get one thing straight. That is not an apology. That is a calculated manipulation tactic disguised as empathy. It brilliantly shifts the entire burden of emotional regulation right back onto your shoulders, making you the problem for simply having a natural reaction. And we accept these fake apologies because, let's face it, we deeply fear conflict. We just want the awkward tension to end. But my friend, you are trading your long-term self-respect for about 5 minutes of fake, rented peace. You are validating their absolute lack of effort. The third insight is the slow normalization of subtle disrespect. This usually creeps up in public or during casual banter. It's that small, sarcastic joke at your expense. It's the subtle eye roll when you share an opinion. Or maybe it's a deliberately delayed text response when you know for a fact their phone is practically glued to their hand. On their own, each of these moments seems laughably insignificant. And if you react strongly to one isolated joke, society is quick to brand you as insecure or too sensitive. So, what do? We swallow our pride, force a laugh, and play along. We stay quiet just to hold on to a fragile connection. Make no mistake, this is a catastrophic failure of your internal frame. It screams that you are terrified of losing them. Now, the modern world is aggressively selling you a very dangerous myth. Society loves to tell you that endless endurance is the ultimate proof of love. They preach that a strong man must weather constant friction to prove his unshakable loyalty. I need you to hear this. That is a complete deception designed to keep you compliant. A guy without a solid frame constantly bends his own reality to fit someone else's comfort zone. He starts believing his quiet suffering makes him noble. It doesn't. It just makes him invisible. Genuine respect is never built on your ability to swallow quiet insults. It is built entirely on the strict, unyielding lines you absolutely refuse to cross. When you tolerate chaos, you don't look stoic. You just look foolish. Let's look at the stark contrast between two distinct types of men. Picture the low-value reaction to a quiet red flag, say, a cancelled plan. This guy instantly fires back a massive, emotional paragraph of text. He over-explains his disappointment while simultaneously pretending he isn't deeply hurt. Then, a few hours later, the anxiety kicks in, and he double texts to secure his position and fish for reassurance. He looks incredibly weak and anxious. His actions just proved he is utterly dependent on external validation, with zero outcome independence. He is entirely consumed by the fear of loss. His quiet red flag just transformed into a massive neon billboard broadcasting his own insecurity. Now, observe a man who has genuinely mastered his internal mechanics. He gets that exact same weak excuse for a cancelled plan. Does he write a novel in response? No. He replies with a single, neutral word. And then, he immediately redirects his heavy focus back to his own mission. He withdraws his attention and his energy. He fundamentally understands the absolute power of the walking away dynamic. Understand this. Walking away isn't some loud verbal threat you toss out in the middle of a screaming match. It is a behavioral reality. It is a switch you flip in total silence. This man does not sit at the table to negotiate his respect. He simply removes his presence the moment his value is no longer recognized. So, how do we permanently patch this dangerous vulnerability? You can't just philosophize your way out of a compromised frame. You need to install strict, unshakable habits, internal guardrails for your mind. The first practice is shifting your focus away from isolated events and starting to track behavioral patterns. Stop listening to the endless stream of creative excuses. Anyone can have a chaotic day or make an honest mistake, but a series of small, eerily similar incidents? That is not an accident. That is a highly predictable behavioral reality. You have to learn to read the data your environment is serving you. Implement the rule of 3 occurrences for any recurring headache. The first time a boundary is gently crossed, you just observe silently. Gather the data without an emotional reaction. The second time it happens, you acknowledge the pattern internally. You now know this is a structural flaw in the dynamic. The third time? That's when you enforce a hard, non-negotiable boundary. But here's the secret. You don't yell. You don't issue some dramatic ultimatum. You simply, cleanly withdraw your time, your energy, and your attention. You create immediate scarcity. Let your absence communicate the heavy weight of your standard. This completely starves the intermittent reinforcement loop of its dopamine hit. The second safe practice is cultivating the strict discipline of detachment. When one of these quiet red flags pops up, your primitive brain is going to panic. Your anxiety will spike, urging you to chase the person down for clarity. You have to aggressively override that impulse. Build an internal sanctuary of focus. The second you feel that urge to seek reassurance, pivot your energy instantly. Channel that intense focus right back into your physical training. Pour it into your financial strategy. Direct it toward mastering a new skill. Make your attention incredibly scarce and genuinely difficult to access. A high-value man operates from a state of internal abundance. He never needs to extract his self-worth from chaotic social dynamics. I get it. You've probably spent years trying to be the understanding guy. You've rationalized away hundreds of tiny red flags to keep people around, thinking your endless patience would eventually be rewarded with deep respect. And you've seen firsthand how spectacularly that strategy fails. The ego desperately wants to believe that our words matter more than our actions, mostly because talking is easy. But the cold, hard truth is that your visible behavior is the only metric the world actually respects. When you accept quiet disrespect, you are broadcasting a loud signal of zero worth. You are actively teaching the world how to mistreat you. Inconsistency and boundary erosion aren't just quirky personality traits. They are fatal, structural flaws in any dynamic. They expose a reality where you are viewed as an exhausting liability rather than a high-value challenge. But now you clearly understand the hidden mechanics of this failure. You know exactly how the gap between your standards and your actions destroys your perceived value. The absolute strongest move you can make today is to snap that gap shut completely. Stop waiting for a catastrophic event to justify your standards. Start enforcing them quietly, daily, and without apology. Remember this: respect is never commanded through long-winded explanations or emotional appeals. It is slowly, silently accumulated through undeniable behavioral consistency. The most dangerous red flags in your life will never be explosive. They will strictly be cumulative. They will stack up in the dark while you intentionally look the other way. You have the power to stop this slow erosion right now. Take a hard, uncompromising look at your own daily life. Ask yourself, are you tolerating the unacceptable simply because it arrived quietly?